There is a card sitting on Meghan's Instagram right now that has 3 things wrong with it. Not according to tabloids, not according to palace sources, not according to anyone with an axe to grind or a side to take in the Sussex debate. According to the card itself, the airline's own published website, and a very simple question that nobody in the friendly press coverage of this story has bothered to ask out loud.
Meghan Markle's fakery with British Airways has just been exposed.
The question is not complicated. It is 7 words, and once you have read the card properly, you will understand why those 7 words matter more than anything in the People magazine exclusive, the Hello write-up, or the GB News follow-up combined. Tonight, we are going to ask it. Because the British Airways anniversary card story is not, when you actually look at it carefully, the sweet, spontaneous moment it was presented as. It is a case study in how a Sussex PR moment gets built, from the first briefing to the People magazine exclusive to the Instagram post. And the documents that explain exactly how it works are available to anyone who wants to read them. 3 things. That is all this takes. The analysis does not require insider knowledge, anonymous sources, or palace briefings. It requires reading the card, checking the airline's website, and asking why the answers do not match the official story.
When all else fails, when everything is going disastrously wrong, there's always a stunt involving an airplane. She is one of the worst passengers to ever travel on their airline. She was rude to the air hostesses. She tried to get upgrades. That was before she met Prince Harry. And she refused to even look after Archie on the flight. And he was crying for a long time before the nannies got involved.
The third piece of evidence is not even on the card. Let's set the scene first, because the context matters considerably more than it might initially appear. May 18, 2026. A British Airways 777, flight BA269, taxiing out of Heathrow. The premium cabin has 1 A-list passenger. Her name is on the manifest. Her husband's name is not. Harry has been on record, repeatedly and recently, saying he does not return to the United Kingdom. He was not photographed at Heathrow that week. The People magazine article does not place him on the flight. The Hello write-up does not place him on the flight. GB News, covering Meghan's connection through London, treats it as her own solo appearance on British soil, in their phrasing, a secret appearance. The day before this flight, Meghan had been standing on a podium in Geneva, telling the World Health Organization what social media does to children. A speech we have covered in detail on this channel, at which the public attendance was, charitably, modest. The next morning, she flew from Switzerland to Heathrow. There is no direct flight from Geneva to Los Angeles. Transited through Terminal 5 and connected onto BA269 for the 12-hour leg home. Per the Heathrow flight page and FlightAware history, both of which are publicly available for anyone to check right now, the flight pushed back 26 minutes late and landed in Los Angeles at 7:25 Pacific time. Solo journey. Solo arrival. Solo Instagram post the following morning. 1 passenger, 1 flight, 1 card. Addressed to 2 people.
Merching our own wedding too. This is all extraordinary stuff, especially the fact that she claims that the British Airways crew on her flight from Europe back to Los Angeles just happened to know that it was her 8th wedding anniversary and just happened to write her this card expressing what a delight she is on the flight.
So what we are looking at here is Meghan traveling alone on a 12-hour leg in the premium cabin. Return journey from a podium in Geneva to her house in Montecito. She had approximately 300 other passengers on that aircraft. She had a flight crew. She had a captain whose name, in a moment, will matter quite a lot. What she did not have on that flight, on any read of the public record, was her husband. 6 hours into the flight, somebody on board hands Meghan a card. A bottle of champagne sits beside it. And by the morning of the 19th, the card was on her Instagram. By that afternoon, People magazine had published their exclusive, with quotes attributed to a source close to the Duchess of Sussex. Between BA269's wheels touching down at LAX and that People article going live, somewhere in the region of 12 to 18 hours had passed. What we know happened in that window is 1 Instagram post. What else happened in that window? Who made the call to People magazine? Who drafted the quote? Who pitched the story? And to which editor? Only the people who placed that briefing know. Keep that context in your head as we go through the card itself, because it is the context in which the first thing on the card stops making sense.
posted this weird picture getting ready to leave for the event on cyberbullying. And the whole event was about protecting your kids from social media. And I guess she doesn't see the hypocrisy that she's posting her kid on social media.
If Palace Insider is giving you the full picture that other channels skip, go ahead and hit the like button. It genuinely helps us reach more people. Thing 1. The addressing. Read the card. It says, Dearest Harry and Meghan. Not Dearest Meghan. Not Dearest Duchess of Sussex. Not Dear Mrs. Sussex with best wishes from the BA269 crew. Dearest Harry and Meghan, as if both of them were sitting in seat 1A and 1B. Now think about what cabin crew actually do when they want to make a gesture toward a single celebrated passenger. They write the passenger's name. They address the human who is in front of them. They do not, as a rule, pre-address a card to a person who is not, by anyone's account, on the aircraft, unless they were briefed in advance that the card was for an anniversary, unless they were given a script, or at minimum a name to copy onto a blank card from the supply cupboard, which raises a reasonable question that nobody in the friendly press coverage of this story has asked directly. How did the British Airways crew know, before this flight took off, or at least before the card was finalized, that the appropriate inscription was Harry and Meghan, plural, as a couple, 2 names, a marriage, on a flight that only one of them was taking? The People magazine exclusive published the following day and sourced to a person described only as close to the Duchess of Sussex, describes a moment in which the crew all came to say happy anniversary and shared their memories of where they were on the day. That is a lovely image. Cabin crew of a certain age, sitting somewhere over the mid-Atlantic, remembering 2018, where they were when the wedding happened, what they were doing, genuinely, completely lovely as a human moment. The card photograph, though, has them addressing both halves of a couple, and the only published source for any of this being spontaneous is one anonymous person briefed by a publicist, talking to one magazine that has been the primary outlet for every Sussex candid moment since 2017.
Leaks to People magazine, her propagandists at People magazine, that this was the crew, the British Airways crew, and she was just so touched that they loved her so much. Here's the article. Meghan Markle was moved by the kindness of a British Airways flight crew who helped ring in her wedding anniversary with Prince Harry.
People magazine, by every observable pattern of its Sussex coverage, does not receive spontaneous royal stories. It receives briefed ones. The source close to the Duchess of Sussex is not a passerby who happened to witness something touching. It is a person whose professional relationship with the Duchess is close enough to brief on her behalf. That is not a spontaneous source. That is a communication source. The card doesn't say, Meghan, congratulations on your anniversary. It says, Dearest Harry and Meghan. That is not a small detail to overlook in the analysis of this story. That is the entire shape of who the card was prepared for, and it does not match who was actually in the cabin. Either the crew addressed a person they knew was not present, which would be an odd choice for a spontaneous gesture, or they were told in advance that the card was for a couple celebrating an anniversary, which is a very different kind of choice. Now look at the card again. Not just the names, but the handwriting itself. The card body is in one set of handwriting, careful, looped, professional. The captain's note, set apart at the bottom, is in a different hand entirely. At least 2 people put a pen to this card, possibly more. This was not one person writing something quickly and passing it forward. Multiple people contributed to a single card for a single passenger. Whoever wrote the main inscription chose to address both halves of a marriage. That choice was made by someone holding a pen on a flight where one of those halves was not aboard. The card did not write itself. That is the first thing. There are 2 more. Thing 2, the captain's note. Set apart from the body of the card, in a different hand, is a separate inscription. Lovely to have you on board. Congratulations on the anniversary. Signed by the captain, Ed French. That is a complete sentence. Read it again. Not congrats scrawled under the main body. Not a signature added to someone else's message. A complete, grammatically finished, fully punctuated sentence from the person flying the aircraft, acknowledging a specific occasion by name, an occasion that belongs to the person sitting in the premium cabin, and to her absent husband. Stop and read that sentence as if you have never seen a celebrity Instagram post in your life and have no prior context for the Sussex PR operation. You are the captain of a 777, responsible for a fully loaded aircraft carrying somewhere between 200 and 300 passengers on a 12-hour transatlantic flight. You have a pre-flight brief. You have a manifest. You have aircraft systems to check, a crew to coordinate, a departure slot to hit, and an airline that does not tolerate wasted minutes on the ground. In the middle of all of that, you pre-compose, not a signature on a card someone else wrote, but a complete, considered, grammatically finished sentence, acknowledging a specific passenger's wedding anniversary. Lovely to have you on board. Congratulations on the anniversary. Not happy anniversary from the flight deck. Not a signature under someone else's line. A full thought, a complete sentence, naming the occasion in the captain's own hand, set apart from the rest of the card to make clear it came directly from him. Captain's brief before every flight. That is not an assumption. That is documented operational procedure at every commercial airline. They check the passenger manifest. They are made aware of premium passengers, dignitaries, public figures, celebrities, and anyone the company has flagged as requiring discretion, special handling, or elevated attention. That is how every commercial airline on Earth operates. British Airways is not an exception and does not claim to be. For Ed French to have written this line, and to have known on this day that this specific passenger's wedding anniversary falls the following day, somebody told him. There are only 3 possible sources. Either Meghan's office briefed British Airways before she boarded, a standard corporate practice for high-profile travelers who wish to arrange something for a specific occasion, or British Airways' own internal passenger system flagged her executive club profile and surfaced the relevant date automatically, which is a capability British Airways has documented on its own website. Or the captain spent part of his pre-flight preparation researching the personal anniversaries of his premium passengers from public records. Those are the 3 possibilities. There is no 4th. Captains do not, as a general rule of commercial aviation, materialize the wedding anniversaries of celebrity passengers from thin air 20 minutes before pushback. One of those 3 things happened. The question is, which one? And here is where the guessing game ends, because British Airways has told us, in its own published words, exactly how the second option works. Subscribe to Palace Insider and drop a comment below. What do you think actually happened here? Thing 3, the one not printed on the card. The most damaging detail in this entire story is not printed on the card Meghan posted to her 4.5 million followers. It is printed on the airline's own legal page, and anyone can read it right now. British Airways states in its own privacy policy, in its own words on its own legal page, that its crews use executive club data to welcome passengers back on board. That means they have access to your loyalty profile, your preferences, your travel history, and the personal milestones that frequent flyer programs track for exactly this purpose. The carrier has documented, in its own published text, the precise mechanism that would allow a captain to know a passenger's anniversary and a cabin crew to address a card to both halves of a marriage before the flight even departs. That mechanism exists. It is on the record. British Airways has published it. It is not a theory or a speculation or a reading between lines. It is documented airline policy, available to read in the privacy section of their own website, placed there because data protection law requires them to tell passengers how their personal information is being used. Whether that mechanism was triggered for Meghan's specific flight, British Airways has not said. Not in a press release, not in a social media post, not in a statement to any of the UK royal correspondents who covered this story. The Daily Mail asked, The Telegraph asked, The Sun asked, The Express asked. British Airways press office returned silence on every inquiry. Now here is why that silence is a specific kind of telling. Standard PR practice for an airline that has just received genuinely positive A-list publicity. A celebrity moved to tears by the spontaneous warmth of the crew, posting to millions of followers running in People magazine, is a confirming statement. Something brief and warm. Something like, "We're so pleased our crew could make the Duchess of Sussex's journey special." 2 sentences. Costs nothing. Amplifies the moment. Gets picked up by every outlet that ran the original story. There has been no confirming statement. The airline that was supposedly the spontaneous, unprompted author of a heartwarming anniversary gesture has been asked directly by multiple national newspapers whether the moment happened the way it was presented. Its answer, across every inquiry, has been silence. That is a considered choice. It is not the silence of an organization that does not know the story exists. It is the silence of an organization that has looked at the specific question being asked and decided it cannot answer it on the record without creating a problem for itself. Whether that problem would be the confirmation that it was arranged, or the confirmation that passenger loyalty data was used to facilitate it, or something else entirely. Only British Airways knows, but the choice to stay silent when confirmation would cost nothing and generate positive coverage tells you that confirmation is not something the airline is currently in a position to offer. The Daily Beast's Tom Sykes, who actually flew to Geneva for Meghan's speech earlier that week, opened his anniversary write-up by noting that Meghan had done what Meghan does to mark an anniversary. She posted to Instagram. The royal correspondents covering the Sussexes for a living had a clear view in real time of which week's content was running through whose press machine and where the briefings were landing. Alison Boshoff, watching the same week's content roll out, the wedding photo dump, the candle launch, the anniversary post drive, told Palace Confidential's audience directly, "I fear this huge photo dump was intended to funnel people to the brand because this year they really have to make money." Richard Eden, sitting beside her, went further. "I find something slightly repulsive about the way they're using their children for commercial gain." Those are the Daily Mail's own people, on camera, on a panel called Palace Confidential, looking at the same week's output and naming it for what it was. Boshoff in particular has been following the Sussex content operation closely enough and long enough that her read on its commercial architecture carries weight. And her read, looking at the same week the BA card landed, was that everything in that week's content, the photo dump, the candle, the card, was part of a coordinated commercial push. The British Airways card is one ingredient in that week's content operation, the warm, human ingredient. The one designed to make the audience feel that even strangers in the ordinary world still love Meghan, still remember 2018, still want to celebrate the marriage. It is the most emotionally effective piece of content in the week's package, which is exactly why it is worth understanding how it was made. Let's be precise about what the three things on this card actually establish, and what they do not. Because precision matters here more than dramatic conclusion. None of the three alone proves the card was staged. That is worth saying clearly and honestly, because the honest analysis is more useful than the confident one. The addressing to both halves of a couple where only one half was present could theoretically be the crew assuming Harry was elsewhere on the aircraft, though no published account places him there. The captain's anniversary note could theoretically result from a crew member mentioning the date to the captain in passing conversation during the pre-flight period. The British Airways privacy policy could theoretically be a standard legal disclosure that was never actually activated for this particular journey. Each of those charitable readings is possible in isolation. Together, stacked against each other, they become progressively harder to sustain, and all three of them come apart completely against the single most important element of this story, which is not the card at all. It is British Airways' sustained, deliberate silence when asked the one question that would resolve everything. A genuine, spontaneous gesture is the easiest story in British corporate PR to confirm. Crew member goes above and beyond. Celebrity posts. Newspaper asks if it was real. Airline confirms. Crew member gets name-checked. Airline gets free positive coverage in 5 national newspapers. That is a PR gift. And British Airways has looked at this particular gift and decided not to open it. Now zoom out and look at the full picture of what this story represents, because the BA269 card is not just a story about a card. It is a case study in how a specific kind of Sussex PR moment gets assembled in real time. The warm, human, celebrity-loved variety that is designed to push back against the harder-edged coverage and remind audiences that real people find Meghan genuinely touching and worth celebrating. Those moments have their own production logic. They require a setting, a willing participant, a camera or a phone, an anonymous source, and a friendly outlet with a ready deadline. The British Airways card had all 5. The question is whether the setting, the flight, the crew, the card, the captain, arrived spontaneously or by arrangement. And the 3 things on the card, taken together with the airline's silence, point in one direction. A passenger boards a flight. A card is prepared. By whom and at whose instruction we do not know. But the addressing and the captain's note confirm it was not entirely unplanned. The card is presented on the flight. Photographs are taken. The card is posted to Instagram by morning. A People magazine exclusive is live by afternoon, sourced to a person close to the Duchess. The story runs in Hello, in GB News, in every aggregator that copy-pasted the same source close to the Duchess of Sussex line. The audience is asked to read it as a spontaneous outpouring of warmth from strangers. The Boshoff and Eden Palace Confidential analysis of the same week's Sussex content output put it as plainly as anyone has. This was a content week designed to drive brand traffic. The card, viewed through that lens, is not a standalone sweet moment. It is one element of a coordinated content operation, the one designed to go in the lifestyle and warmth column of the week's output, alongside the anniversary photo dump and the candle campaign. The card is still on Meghan's Instagram, the People article is still live, British Airways still has not said a word, the captain's name is still in the inscription, and the airline's own published privacy policy still explains, in plain English, how a crew member could have known what to write before Meghan even boarded. 3 things. The addressing to a couple where only one was present. The captain's complete sentence naming an anniversary he had no obvious default way of knowing. And the airline's own documented mechanism that would explain both, combined with its conspicuous silence when asked whether that mechanism was used. Read the card twice. Read the captain's line a 3rd time. Then ask why it says Harry and Meghan when only Meghan was on the flight, why the captain knew the date, and why the airline has not confirmed the story that anyone in its position would be delighted to confirm. Those are the questions the official version of this story has no good answers for. And in the absence of good answers, the documents, the card, the captain's note, and the airline's own published policy tell a story of their own. The card is still on Meghan's Instagram. The People article is still live. British Airways has still not said a word to any of the newspapers that asked. And the 7-word question that sits underneath the entire story, why does it say Harry and Meghan when only Meghan was on the flight, still has no answer from anyone in a position to give one. So here is the question for you. Do you think the British Airways card was a genuine, spontaneous gesture from the crew? Crew who somehow knew it was the anniversary, addressed a man who was not on the flight, and moved a captain to write a complete sentence naming the occasion? Or does the combination of all 3 details, plus the airline's sustained silence, suggest that something else was going on? Drop your honest take in the comments below, subscribe to Palace Insider so you do not miss what comes next, and a like genuinely helps us reach more people who want this kind of analysis. See you in the next one.